Welcome to It's Upgrade Season, the only place to get raw and unfiltered advice on how to get your shit together 1 week at a time. I'm your host, Alexandria, and join me every Monday for The Upgrade and every Friday for The Wind Down, where I'm going to be answering your dilemmas. Small shifts, huge upgrades. Let's fucking do this. Okay, girlies, I have such a treat for you. Now, you have probably seen me on Instagram sharing a book repeatedly, which is called The Light Work. It's a yellow book. And guys, I'm not gonna lie, I was very, very honored because I got an advanced reader copy of this book from my friend Jessica. And I had this book, I'd received it, and Jessica I knew was due to be on the podcast. I actually met her a couple of years ago whilst I was living in Miami. And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna pick up that book. Now, I knew Jessica was incredible. I knew the book was going to be good, but I was not prepared for how much this blew me away and just how perfect and aligned the timing was of reading this book. Let me give you a little bit of backstory on Jessica Zweig. So she has been described as a voice of her time by Marianne Williamson and a personal branding expert by Forbes. I mean, need I say more? But she is a serial entrepreneur. She has founded 3 businesses and she recently sold her energy SimplyBe, which is truly the nation's premier personal branding company. She's the host of the top-ranked podcast, The Spiritual Hustler, and she's a highly sought-after speaker for companies like Google, Mindvalley, Create and Cultivate, and Nike. Is it Nike or is it Nike? I never know. She is an absolute powerhouse. And so when I started to read this book and she shared her journey of creating all these amazing things in her life, but feeling this call to the feminine, something just lit up within me. I've shared a lot about the journey that I'm going through at the moment. And so much of what she's sharing just felt like such a soul yes in my body. And having known Jessica and read her previous book as well, which is more personal branding focused and absolutely fantastic, this felt like seeing her in a whole new light. So I hope that you get to see her in this light in this interview. We are going to be talking about aliens. We're going to be talking about going to therapy with friends. We go in this conversation. It is so juicy. It's so powerful. And I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did recording it. So without further ado, here is Jessica. Babes, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be in your energy, to reconnect with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Can I just say what a gift you have been already this morning? I walked in. I was late. I'm never late. But
you were like 5 minutes late.
I was literally like 4 minutes late. And I'm like,
I don't really consider that late.
I'm like, and you literally gave me the biggest hug and you were like, just thank you for having me here. And I'm like, I need to be thanking you. Like, I am so honored to have you here, but I just feel like I wanted to share that because that's such a representation of what it feels like to be in your energy.
Thank you.
It is just the most beautiful, warm, kind, loving, so rooted in gratitude energy. And it's a gift to be around. So I'm excited for this conversation.
I'm so excited for this conversation. And I really, truly received that from you because I could say the most beautiful things about your energy. I mean, we met 2 years ago in Miami and we've stayed connected through the ethers. And this is what I'm, trying to bring through my book, through my message, through my work to the world is just women who are in their hearts coming together, really seeing each other, really supporting each other, being on the same team, and just the opportunity to connect with you here on this podcast is something I am deeply grateful for. So thank you for feeling that energy and reflecting it back.
I love this. I'm so excited.
Me too.
I was going to start in one place, but I'm going to start in a different place just because of what you mentioned then. And you mentioned friendship then.
Yeah.
And one of the chapters I found really interesting in the book was talking about female friendship.
Yeah.
And you and your best friend went to therapy together.
We sure did. Yeah.
Tell me more about this.
So I'm very blessed, and I say this in the book, when you're a woman doing your work, you attract women who are doing their work too. Like there's a frequency mismatch if you're really on the path of personal growth and spiritual growth, that you're going to attract friends ideally who are of that same vibration, or they vibe out or you vibe out if that's not really in the space between the both of you. So I'm very blessed that I have a best friend. Her name is Megan. She gave me deep permission to write that story in the book.
Didn't end up in therapy again.
No, right? We've actually talked about going back because it was so freaking nourishing and so productive and so healing. But I really believe, and the title of that chapter is Female Friendship's the Greatest Medicine of All. And all of us have a sister wound, right? All of us were somehow on the other side of mean girls, didn't always feel like we belonged, didn't always fit in, maybe were bullied, girl on girl crime is real,
Oh my God, we're brutal.
We're brutal.
Yeah.
We're brutal. And so, we carry that with us in our adult lives. And we try, I think, either consciously or unconsciously to heal them and find friendships in our adult lives that are safe and whole and conscious and responsible. And so my best friend of 11, 12 years now at this point, we've been through a lot as best friends. Like 10 years plus is a long time. Like it's a decade of your life. And about 2.5 years ago, we got into a fight. It was so dumb, but it wasn't at the time. There was a disagreement or misunderstanding, I should say, about a girls' weekend that I felt like I was not invited to intentionally. And there was just all of these unspoken, I call them like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
I love that.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean.
Like just things that we just were holding inside that we weren't probably even totally conscious of how much they were impacting us.
Yeah.
And so we didn't talk for a month. And I say in the book, like not talking to your best friend is like cutting off your oxygen. Right. And I think that like, well, I have a husband, I know you have a partner, the romantic relationships in our lives do fill us so much, but there's something about the intimacy, the emotional intimacy that we get from girlfriends that is literally the best thing in life. And Megan is that, I'm going to just share this publicly. We're twin flames.
I love that.
We keep that kind of to each other, but we've been talking about it more openly.
Yeah.
She's really like my second half. So not talking to her for a month was really deeply, deeply painful. And she's done her work. I've done my work. And we kind of came together. We knew this was an alchemization. We knew that we had a choice to let this version of our friendship die.
Yeah.
So that we could step forward into a new version of our friendship, which was based on more authenticity and like I said, responsibility and consciousness of not just the friendship, but who we were becoming as women.
Yeah.
Because we had evolved over 10 years.
10 years is a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I called my therapist and she was...
So hang on, did you propose the therapy? Who proposed the
Megan
therapy?
proposed the therapy thing.
Okay.
And the second she said it, I was like, yes, full body yes. There was no resistance.
Because I was thinking it takes bravery to put that forward as well,
Yeah.
To say, can we do this together?
And I think it's a broader kind of reflection of just how essential support is. Like if you're going through anything hard, whether it's with a friend, a partner, your job, your body, like reach out and hire people to help you.
Yeah.
It's just, we cannot do this thing called life, the human experience alone. And we called my therapist because I had been working with this amazing like clinical therapist for quite some time, because we have, on that note, so many healers. We have like a couples therapist. She has her trauma specialist, and I have my astrologer, and like, a little black book.
Who do we go to
exactly.
in this?
We had that conversation, like, who would we call? And I got to give my therapist a huge amount of credit, because she really wanted to be in so much integrity to Megan, because I was her client.
Yeah.
And so my therapist is actually based in Nashville, and that's where I live. And Megan's from Chicago, and she flew down, and we literally did it in person. We sat on a sofa together, and it was 2.5 hours. And I really feel like it was a quantum leap. Like, here's what I will say, and hopefully this will help with your audience. And I love that you asked this. We unpacked our stuff, right, between her and I. And then, of course, because my therapist is amazing, she started digging into our individual stuff.
Yeah.
And Megan started sharing about her childhood and things I kind of knew, of course, but to hear her, almost as if I wasn't even there, talk to my therapist about her trauma and her childhood and her pain. I remember leaving my body and looking down on Megan, completely neutral, completely unattached, as her friend, as her best friend, and to see her in her humanity. And it was like within a matter of seconds, it was like a quantum leap. I was like, I can hold nothing against anything from this moment forward. I can only hold compassion.
Yeah. So beautiful.
Yeah.
So incredible.
Thank you.
I really feel like you've pioneered something here as well. I think
hope so.
because I do think it's hard with friendships, particularly long-term friendships. And I'll be completely open. I've struggled in some of my longer-term friendships more than shorter-term friendships because you shift and evolve so much.
Correct.
And it's hard sometimes to keep re-meeting that person. Like I say in my partnership in terms of my husband, we have this deep love because we're so willing to re-meet each other and get to know this new version of each other. But it's interesting. I don't know whether we always apply that naturally to friendships. I think there can be a lot of, and I know I've been on the receiving end of this a lot. You know, you've changed. You're not the same. You don't want the same things you used to want. And people are really struggling with that. I think it's really interesting, this idea of actually, like, if we're going to nurture that as a long-term, deep part of our life. You say in part of the book, which I loved, it must be in the friendship chapter, but you said about how some of your favorite memories are actually with your girlfriend.
Absolutely.
On girl trips and things like that.
Yes.
And it's so true. They're such magical memories. Like my wedding day I love, but part of that magic was actually getting ready with the girls in the morning.
100%. I have the chills.
You know, it was amazing. So we need to nurture those friendships in the same way we would a romantic partnership. It's so
true. It's so well said. I'm doing some deep work with my husband right now, and we're working with these guides, and one of them posed to us, are you willing, it was such a powerful question, are you willing to wake up every single day and not know the person sleeping next to you?
Ooh.
Can you open the box and let that person change and let that person grow? And the same exact thing I believe must apply to our friendships.
Yeah.
And, you know, things are a little bit more, because we're women, you know, emotional with women, and our attachments can be a bit different in style.
Yeah.
But I believe that it really comes down to you doing your own work. Like everything that happened on that sofa, everything that happened over that breakdown, over the month that we didn't talk, I had to really claim radical responsibility for my own shit. It had nothing to do with Megan. And so to be in these rooted, conscious, ever-evolving female friendships, yes, requires her to grow, but it requires for you to hold space for her own growth, I should say.
Yeah.
But you have to be committed to doing your own work. And that could be really painful sometimes because it requires you to kind of look at your own shit.
Yeah.
And make peace with it and alchemize it yourself and change so that your friendships can grow together. And I got to really give a lot of credit to my friend Megan because she's been a big teacher for me in that way.
Sounds like an incredible friend.
Yeah, she is.
I just want to add to that as well. Something that I've noticed is when you do the work on yourself, rather than going to blame that other person, often, not always, because I feel like this is one of those things you can't guarantee, and it might take some time, but that other person will eventually come to you and be like, hey, actually, I'm really sorry for the way that I treated you, or I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you, or I'm sorry.
Yes.
And like, I've experienced that as well, where like, it would have been so easy to go to them and be like, you did this, you did this, you did this. But instead I've gone away and been like, this is my shit. I'm just going to like work on it.
Right.
And then, and full transparency, it's taken years sometimes, but there has been this like coming back round of like, do you know what? I was going through this period of time and I took it out on you, or what, you know, there's actually happened a couple of times, like in different situations.
Yes.
So I think it does create that space as well for them to go on their own journey.
Right. For you to be in your sovereignty, which is one of my favorite words, or hold your own boundaries.
Yeah.
And not project and make it about someone else. It's funny how the universe works. People come to their own things in their own time.
Yeah.
But that I also write about that in the book too, in the chapter called Power. Because there was a really long time in my life, most of my life, up until like my mid-30s, and I'm 42, where I was unconsciously like a victim to my whole life. Like everything was happening to me.
Yeah.
It was everyone else's fault.
Yeah.
And I went to this women's retreat. I spent like $700 to go up to the woods of Wisconsin for a weekend. It was like the best $700 I'd ever spent.
Yeah.
Lots of things happened at that retreat, but the biggest unlock and takeaway was that I am fully responsible, radically responsible for everything in my life. The good, the bad, the shit, the incredible, the radiant, to really no longer hold this identity of things were anyone else's fault. it was all up to me.
Yeah.
And that was when I actually started SimplyBe Agency, my company. I was under the pressure of this corporate job I hated. I was waiting for this other company to hire me that couldn't raise the money to hire me. Like, I was miserable.
Yeah.
And I went on that retreat and I just was like, I'm going to take back my power.
Yeah.
And that's really one of the biggest crossroad moments of my life, was the beginning of my company, SimplyBe Agency, that I just sold. And it really has to show up in every single relationship. That's why I write about outer light, because where our darkness, our shadows, our projections, our insecurities get magnified most is in relationship with other people, you know? And I just think it's the most important thing to do the light work.
You write about this principle 1 + 1
Yeah.
equals 11.
Yeah.
Can you share a bit about that? Because I think that's really potent in terms of everything we're talking about now as well.
Can you see my tattoo?
I wanted to see the tattoo. I love the tattoo.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this feels really magic, because I remember, I feel like such a creep right now. I'm like, I read this in your book.
No, I mean, my whole life is in this
you
book.
You talk about getting the tattoo in there.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've seen the tattoo.
I know you have, and it's red. The
love that
number
it's red.
11 is red, which represents like love. Yeah.
I love that.
Okay, so this tattoo came after. So I was, when I was 23, I met a man who was 14 years older than me.
Yeah.
I had just moved to the city of Chicago after college. I was like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, was pursuing an acting career. I didn't know which street was which street. I was waitressing. I was cocktail waitressing at this bar. Literally having no real career. I went to school for theater and was pursuing my acting career. And I meet this very like intriguing older man at this bar, and we fall in love, and we were together for 5 years. And it was what I sort of equate in the book, like the Romeo and Juliet, like ill-fated lovers kind of story.
Yeah.
Very passionate, very toxic, very codependent, very addictive.
Yeah.
And we broke up, obviously, when I was 28, so about 5 years later. And it was as if my heart shattered into a trillion pieces. I actually couldn't like function for about 6 months.
Yeah.
It's probably took me a good like 2 years to fully alchemize that relationship and move on. And I started seeing a therapist. The whole through line of my book and my life is like therapy.
Key takeaway, go to therapy.
Exactly. Huge takeaway. Hire support for your human mess. And I really, though, in those few years being single, because I started, trying to replace him with, my rebounds and all the things.
Yeah.
And I was, yeah. And you're just outsourcing like love.
Yeah.
And I realized that the thing I really needed to look at was not the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend, not the relationship, but where my deep, unrequited desires to be loved, that encompassing, to be like that enmeshed with somebody.
Yeah.
Where was that coming from? Why was there such an insatiable appetite to feel whole in another person? And through a lot of healing and self-discovery and journeying and journaling and traveling and building my beautiful life as a single woman in my late 20s, early 30s, I got this newsletter. I don't know if you remember The Daily Love.
No.
Okay, it was by Mastin Kipp. He used to have this beautiful newsletter.
Love Mastin Kipp.
Yeah, he used to run a platform called The Daily Love, and he had this 1 + 1 = 11 description in his newsletter. And it basically, the metaphor is be a whole person. 1 + 1 does not equal 2.
Yeah.
1 + 1, when it equals 2, it's not a mathematical equation, it's a metaphor. 1 is you, 1 is him or her, 1 is them. And when you get into a partnership, typically what's expected is that you meld, you bend, you shapeshift, you become a version of yourself that is no longer the version of this solid 1.
Yeah.
And that's what had happened to me. And I realized that I wanted to find a partner because I was working so much on my wholeness that when you come together with someone who's in his or hers, you equal 11. You're still you. You still are the shape an identity that you've been working on to become, but you stand together next to each other more powerfully, because 11 is numerically greater than 2 factually, but it's a holy divine number of, you know, unity and oneness consciousness. And, you know, it's that number 11, we all see 11. It has such weight. And so I was really coming to find my wholeness, and I went to a tattoo parlor and I got it on my rib cage.
Love this.
And about 6 months later, I met my husband, which sounds like a fairy tale. It wasn't, but it was, you know, I had called in a man.
Yeah.
Because I was dating like prototypes of the ex, you know, unemotional, a little narcissistic.
Yeah.
Well, expected my worship.
Yeah.
And my husband came into my life as a man who had done his own work and was a complete person within himself. And that's why I attracted. Yeah. You know?
It also did make me giggle though, because he likes golf, doesn't he?
Yeah. Does yours?
No, but it just made me really laugh because it just felt like such a relatable. My version of this was when I met him, but when I met Jake, he was starting his own business. He literally started his business and met me about in the same week.
Wow.
And you know, you've built businesses, you know how intense that journey is. So he had these two intense things. So my thing that I gave him up to, so to speak, or I felt like I was in competition with, and I did feel like that. You know, I was young. I had done some work on myself, but you know, not enough.
Yeah, of course.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I did feel like I was in competition with his business, but it just made me laugh with the golf thing because it's so relatable. You know, you say goodbye to them, to this thing. And I think also we've built a narrative as a collective of women of like, oh, we use the language, we lose our husbands to the football, we lose our husbands to the golf, things like this. And it's like, what I love that you shared was like, well, hang on a minute. Why didn't I fucking pour into myself in the same way he's pouring into him?
Exactly. I remember when I first started dating him prior to Brian, you know, in that 5-year toxic codependent relationship, weekends were for us. Like we went to, you know, date night on Friday, woke up, had Saturday morning sex, would go run errands. Saturday night, we would hang out with friends. The next morning we wake up, have more sex. Then we would go to brunch. Then we would do laundry. Like weekends were like black holes. And I met Brian and he was like, yeah, so, I'm out at 6 a.m. You'll still be sleeping Saturday and Sunday. I won't be back till 4. I need to shower. We have to do dinner later. Like golf was his priority. And we for the first year, it was our biggest source of contention. Yeah. Golf. Yeah. It's like, I fucking hate your sport. I fucking hate it. It's my mistress. And it was really, in hindsight, we've been together 12 years now. Yeah. The biggest gift. Because I was like, wow, Jess, you get to do what you want to do on the weekends. Yeah. Just because you're in a relationship now doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your workouts and your nail appointments and your time with your girlfriends and your alone time on your weekends. Yeah. And it's actually created such a beautiful equilibrium in our relationship. 12 years later, I'm like, bye, honey. Go have a great time. Go golf. When are you golfing? You golfing this weekend? Yeah. No, really? Like, it's kind of amazing how it works. I love that. But yeah, I thank you for reflecting that. It's so relatable because we all, you know, if we're in a relationship, our partners have the golf, the football, the startup. Yeah. And I think it's such a beautiful invitation for us to maintain our independence.
100%. I was just laughing in the back of my head now because I'm like, if Jake's out for the evening, I'm like, great, I get to sit and watch Love Island. Yes, yes. I'm just like, but it's nice. I'm like, he does not love watching Love Island. I can't believe I love watching it, but I do. And I'm like, I would love to just sit there, zero guilt, put it on, chill, you know?
It's such a gift. Every woman I talk to that's in a long-term relationship enjoys to some degree when their partner is out for the night or, you know, they have their own space.
It's so nice.
It's such a gift.
Yeah, such a gift. There was a bit in the book, and I feel like it relates to what we've been talking here about around the idea of wholeness, that I would describe, I call them salty slaps in the face. It's those like things that you need to hear, but it feels a bit like being hit by a wave in the face. It like wakes you up, but you're like, oh, like really? Okay, I hear you. And one of the bits that really spoke to me was this idea of deriving. I'm always cautious. I don't want to misconstrue your words here, so feel free to correct me if I'm parroting this wrong. But like construing a sense of worth and being lovable from external things. So you've mentioned already, you know, acting. So it was like, if I do well at this, then I'm lovable. If I do well at building my business, I'm lovable. And basically crafting an identity around these different parts.
Yes.
How did you go from crafting that to who you were, to just simply being you? Because I think that's something a lot of us do. I did it. I didn't realize I was doing it until 2 years ago now, roughly.
Yeah.
For me, I got ill when I was pregnant with Leo. Wasn't expected to be pregnant. Got pregnant. I was very ill. And suddenly all these things that made me me, or I thought made me me,
Yes.
I had to let go of.
Yes.
And it was fucking petrifying and very confronting as well. So I'm really curious about your journey with this and how you came to this wholeness.
Love this question. And that, I think, stems from one of my favorite parts in the book, where I talk about chasing the spiral of worth, and that we, from a very young age, look to externally source our sense of love, worthiness, power, beauty, confidence. And we're conditioned to believe that it's, oh, you get good grades, you're good job, you got into a good school, you're important, you're smart, you got a good job, you get a great partner, you get a fit body, you get some awards, you write a book, you have a podcast, you have an audience, you have a platform. It's like one thing after the next that just validates us. And I was, you know, posed with the question, I was writing this book, and this had really come through on the other side of my kind of identity death. What if all of those things went away? Like, what if I had no money? What if I didn't look the way I looked? What if I didn't have this big, beautiful home above my head? What if I didn't have the Instagram following? What if I didn't have the awards and people knew my name, that I had a partner that loved me? Like, what if all of that went away? Would I still have worth? And the answer is yes, because we're born worthy. We're born divine. We were put on this planet to express our own unique blueprint. And we are all a piece of the divine, which means we are love. We are needed. We matter. And if we were really to unprogram the programming, I think we'd all live in such a different state of being. We'd have just so much more peace. We'd have so much more presence. And it wasn't until I went to Egypt, which I talk about extensively in my book, about 2 years ago myself. It's funny you said you had that 2 years ago too. I wonder what was happening on the earth.
Oh my God, I know it was, because I remember watching your Egypt stories.
Yeah.
When I was like 7 months pregnant, I remember I was reading a book at the time about matrescence, which is like completely losing all sense of yourself.
Yes.
It was. Yeah,
Yes.
really similar timing.
Wow. Something I think really was alchemizing on the planet in the last few years post-pandemic. This was fall of 22. And I'd shown up to Egypt after building like the spiral of worth, like crushing it after, you know, being a broke, starved actress, and then made it to some degree in an acting career, then quit the acting life, became an entrepreneur, built this fancy, sparkly online magazine in Chicago, got a boyfriend, like just, and I tell the story in the book of all the different things that have kind of pushed me to keep pushing to prove my worth and to hold it. And I go to Egypt after, you know, at this point it was a 5.5, 6 years of running my agency, which was beautiful and totally on purpose and in alignment for a really long time until it wasn't. And I was cashed to my bones with burnout by the time I got to Cairo. And I'd love for people to read the book. I won't go into the whole story, but there was a specific moment in one of those temples, the temple of Hathor, who is the goddess of bliss. That's what she's all about. She's the goddess of play, of pleasure, of music, of frequency. And I went into that temple and I died. Like, the shit that happens to you in Egypt is no joke. You're not on any drugs. You're not on any medicine. You have things happen to you that are inexplainable, that make you sound crazy when you tell them. And that's what happened to me in that temple. I was struck by white lightning. And this whole version of myself disintegrated. My DNA codes alchemized, came online. I started spinning with light. I started hearing all of these voices. I started hearing Hathor. And her message to me, which was many, and I write again about it a lot in the book. One of the main headlines was, Jessica, you've missed the whole point. This is supposed to be joyful. This human experience is meant for your bliss, your pleasure, your play, your fun. And that's your job. And so it was pretty dramatic. Like when I came home from Egypt, I was a different person. And it was in those few months after that trip that I actually got this book deal for Lightwork and wrote it. I just was like, I know what it needs to say.
Yeah.
And it poured through me in three and a half months. I read it back. I'm not kidding, Alex.
Yeah.
I read it back. I'm like, I wrote this? Like, who wrote this? She wrote that. I don't know if I wrote that. She wrote that. It's really true. It's really true. And, you know, I'm still a student to what you just asked. Like, I'm still a student to that as much as I'm, the teacher.
Yeah.
That we have been so programmed to believe that what makes us worthy is outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
And to really call back the unconscious debt that we've paid to the matrix.
Yeah.
That tells us that we have to prove and convince and grip and hustle and grind to be successful, to be seen, to matter. And that when we tap back into the truth of that, that's a lie, it is a joyride to be you.
Yeah.
To be on this planet at this time, in this vessel that you were given for a microcosm of time. Like, let's have fun with it. Let's do something good with it.
Yeah.
Let's cherish it. Let's remember how sacred it is.
Yeah.
Without having to do anything.
I love that return to bliss energy as well, though. And like, that is something, and I think that was one of the parts I just found so potent, is I really struggle with that.
Yeah.
And I have really struggled with that, you know, just full transparency. And it sounds so silly, like it should be the easiest thing to be in joy and to be in bliss. But I do think we're taught to resist it or taught to earn it. I feel like for me, I make bliss and joy something that for so long I had to earn.
Yes.
And I feel like this has been my journey that I'm on at the moment, which is like reprogramming myself completely.
Yes.
To be like, no, you get to access that now or at any point you choose.
Yes.
This isn't something you have to earn. You don't need to finish writing those emails or text those people back or achieve a certain thing. You just get to just feel that now, and that's okay.
Yes.
And you also don't have to justify it to anyone either.
No.
Like, even the other day, it was actually not related to joy particularly, but it linked. I love bougie skincare.
Me too. Hello, of course.
I was a bit embarrassed admitting that. I'm like, okay, cool. In good company. So I love some bougie skincare. I went to this skincare event. I was like really excited. I was like, oh, I'm going to get some new skincare. I got my skincare. I came home. Jake's talking to me. He's like, oh, did you get some stuff? I was like, yeah, I got some stuff. And I was like, it was quite expensive, but da-da-da. And he was like, babe, don't fucking justify it to me. He was like, tell me how good they are. And I'm like, oh yeah, why did I do that?
Yes.
Jake never questions me on that kind of shit. It's nothing to do with Jake.
Yeah.
I have this thing in me that if I've done something or I've enjoyed something, I need to justify why. And it's such a program.
It's such a program.
But the unprogramming is happening, but it's a process.
And the consciousness awareness of it is a huge step.
Yeah.
First step. You've said it a few times as you were sharing, like, it's a choice.
Yeah.
Joy is a choice. Like, happiness is a fleeting emotion and we all ride that wave, but joy actually takes commitment and devotion. And to really wake up and realize how we have been conditioned to feel guilty for it in this
guilty.
Yes, in the smallest and biggest of ways. I was recently on a podcast with Rebecca Minkoff, and she's amazing. And I was telling her about my healing journey from burnout and how I chose joy. Like, it was an intention for the year. It was my word for the year last year. And I was like, yeah. And, I would, dare I even tell you this? Like, close my computer at 3:00 to like go take a walk. She's like, isn't that funny that you would dare to even say that? That like, as a mom, 'cause she's a mom, like had to sneak out of Rebecca Minkoff headquarters at like 5 to go feed her children. But she didn't want to set an example to her team that like she was leaving early, even though it was at 5.
Yeah.
Like, the conditioning runs so freaking deep.
Yeah.
And I just feel there's such power and intention. Like I wake up every day and I speak out loud my intention for the day. I set the intention for it to be a joyful day. Is it every day? No. Life happens. You get dinged in the heart. You get stressed out. Like things can, it's heavy to be human a lot of the time. But I believe that the path of the light worker is to reclaim that birthright of joy and to commit to it, to choose it and to not bypass that it is dark and heavy to be here, and to go into those conversations with yourself and with others, listening to things like this, to know that there is sovereignty, that we have dominion over how we choose to respond, you know, and how we choose to see ourselves. Yeah. It's all up to us.
I love this. There's a mantra that you mentioned at one point as well.
Yeah. From the book.
Yeah. Can you share?
Yeah. So in Egypt, I was we were all taken to see this shaman who's like a 9th generation Reiki aromatherapy something healer. Okay.
Yeah. I've seen him pop up quite a few times, by the way. He's legit. He's like,
Mel was just in Egypt. She saw him, tagged him. I was like, guys, that's Gamal.
Yeah.
He's legit.
Yeah.
He has a 2-story essential oil shop in Cairo. And you have to set an appointment with him, and you know, you definitely shop and buy oils. It's, you know, kind of a touristy thing, but not really. It's a very holy experience. And you get time with him. You know, you can spend some money and have him kind of read your energy. And this was in the midst of the trip. And like I said, I had shown up burnt out, bottom of the barrel, like exhausted from proving my worth.
Yeah.
And I had, you know, started to I keep saying alchemize, because that's really what that trip was. And anyway, I sat down with him and he took one look at me and he was like, you must learn to love your pleasure more than you love your suffering.
That's it.
I'm crying. Like, let me write that down on my iPhone so I don't forever forget that verbatim. Because he saw me, you know, like suffering is addicting. You know, it's not, we're talk about the programming. We're not safe in our bodies.
Yeah.
Like our nervous systems feel more comfortable in like fight or flight than they do in like complete surrender and peace.
Yeah.
It's it's so deeply entrenched, and it's generational.
I also think it's cultural as well.
And cultural.
Wait for the other shoe to drop.
All the things.
Like, you know, if someone's doing well, they're like, well, you know, like it's very ingrained.
Exactly.
That we can't trust that.
Right. Trust is the flex. Trust is the real, I think, upgrade. To really sit and hold that it's all divine and it's happening for you in perfect time, and to not lean so into the suffering, like the victimization, the complaining, the worry, the stress. And there are things that happen in this human life, like tragedy, you know, and real grief. And I don't want to bypass that. Sometimes we're required to fall apart and unravel and suffer because life can break us open. But on a day-to-day basis, to really focus on pleasure as a practice versus suffering as a default takes work. Yeah. And I will never forget that he said that, and it's become a mantra. And I really believe that when we're in a state of joy, you know, when we're in a state of levity and positive vibration, you know, we've everything is energy. We magnetize things. We get into alignment from the simple choice of choosing joy. And that to me is such a superpower. Yeah. It's such a superpower. Yeah. To literally change your own energy with the power of your own thoughts, which is what I talk about in the book. Yeah. That we are that in control to co-create our own realities, not to create them because we're not gods. We are humans co-creating with life. Yeah. But that our mindset, where we choose to point our focus, shifts our frequency, and everything around us responds to that frequency. I just think it's so exciting to be alive. To be a human on this planet. It's such a gift. Yeah. Versus a, you know, suffering, you know, experience that so many people will say about this human experience. And my book.
I think we forget that though sometimes.
We so forget.
And I think it sounds quite dark, but I think the best example of remembering that is if someone has like a someone close to them pass or have a near-death experience or have their own near-death experience or their own moment of questioning their future, you suddenly get this realization of like, hang on, like I'm complaining about this, and it doesn't fucking matter because like I get to have this experience. Like I get to be here. Like how amazing is that? And I also think like whilst we're still here, anything can change. You know, you can be in the deepest, dark, shittest patch of mud in your life, and I totally get that, and I've been there, and I know you've been there, and we all have our moments in life where it's tough as hell. But if you're still here, there's still opportunity to change things around. There's still opportunities to rewrite that story and rewrite that future and recreate your reality.
I mean, I do talk about aliens in my book, as you know.
I'm going to ask you all about aliens. I was going to start there, but I'm going to ask you all about this on the wind down. So but go.
Well, I'm coming out of the spiritual closet in this book with like all my beliefs. And yes, I believe, how can we be the only species in the entire universe? It's just scientifically impossible. And I have had my own connection, relationships, experiences with my star family, which are the Pleiadians. And, you know, because I've had such a big connection to them for so many years, and I've been on the path of spiritual growth for so many years, and have learned how to meditate and connect to my crown chakra, and am clairaudient and can get downloads and messages very clearly from spirit. I'm like, awesome. Let me just go up there. Let me hang out up. That's where I'm from. Those are my homies. That's my family. And it feels so good to be up there. It's safe. It's peaceful. It's beautiful. It's light. And to be in this human experience can be heavy and dense and hard, you know? And it wasn't until the last few years when I really started digging into like where a lot of my darkness was coming from and how out of alignment I was. It was like, oh, you're using this as a form of escapism, to not physically want to be in your own human body, to leave your body was a hack, was like my coping mechanism. And so to root down into this body and really understand so much of what the Pleiadians actually tell us is just how magnificent our bodies are. What a true magical abilities we have as human beings with the power of our thoughts, with our pineal gland, with our sexuality, you know, with our ability to manifest. Like human beings have been gifted these tools of light. And over hundreds of thousands of years, and we don't have to go there because I'm not a scientist, but I do study a lot of this philosophy from, you know, Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton and Billy Carlson. There's so many voices out there that are really talking about how humanity has evolved. And I resonate deeply, you know, more than Darwin, more than religion. It's like, no, we were actually hybrids. And there's been a fight for humanity over Earth for eons, because there's light and dark. It's a 3D reality. There's polarity.
Hang on, I want to go back to this.
Yeah,
hybrids,
sorry, I'm going off now.
I love this. Hybrids with aliens.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Exactly. So there were human species here that did originate from like apes and chimpanzees and turn into Neanderthals essentially. And everyone's probably familiar with that image of like the chimp that's like hunched over to like this chimp that's slightly taller, that gets a little taller. It's more upright. The last two images from the final ape to human doesn't make sense. There was a genetic modification that happened. There's no other explanation for a hairy-bodied, small brain, slightly hunched over, to go from that, even at its tallest form, to upright, bald head, big brain, straight humanoid.
But I've always thought this as well, because if that was happening, why haven't we evolved again?
That's a very, very interesting question. I think that there are star-seeded children coming onto this planet.
Oh no, but I mean, like, I feel like it makes more sense that something happened in terms of like that genetic modification, because if it was just like a slow natural process, then we would still be going through that.
Correct.
But we haven't. We've just stayed the same for over 2,000 years now, like depending on
like 15,000 years.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, if that process was like, I don't know, shouldn't we be flying by now? Or what do you know what I mean?
That's a very good question. Yeah.
No, sorry, I interrupted. The genetic modification.
It's such a good question, and I haven't even thought about that. What, you know, how I see it is that there was a fight over the human species, that we were programmed with genetic DNA from other species, that some, like the Pleiadians, like the Sirians, like the Arcturians, wanted to empower humanity to be these light workers, to be these sovereign, free, co-created, like true magicians of their human experience, to be that empowered, to be that self-generated.
Yeah.
But because again, it's a 3D reality, there's light and there's dark here. There was a fight for Earth, and that there were species that were battling kind of the species in our galaxy that wanted the opposite, wanted to control humanity. And that has manifested itself over the last, I think specifically last 4,000 or 5,000 years because of the patriarchy and church and state, war and religion. We went away from, you know, tribe and land to court and, you know, hierarchies and villages. And it's playing itself out now in 2024. And I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it is. It's playing itself out now in like big pharma, big food, mass media, corporate capitalism, social media, to keep humanity stuck in this state of fear, to keep us sick. And when we're afraid and we're sick, we can be controlled and manipulated. And I believe we're at a very exciting time to be alive. Is what I was saying earlier, where humanity is fucking waking up. Like there's a huge collective consciousness arising on this planet that there's something going on here, and that we get to choose our own response to this, and we get to create a new earth, which I talk about in the book all the time. And that comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of harmony. It comes from a place of oneness. Yeah. And not to say that the aliens were perfect. They clearly weren't. Yeah. But we have missed the memo of just how sovereign and powerful we are with this human technology. And we're finding each other, and we're healing past traumas. Yeah. And we have all of these beautiful tools and modalities that are like commonplace today, like yoga and meditation and plant medicine and, you know, Reiki and crystals. I mean, you name it, right? We're all like obsessed with this now. Yeah. But I believe there's a deeper reason why, because people are coming into this new timeline. Yeah. You know, and I think that this hybrid identity, at least from where I'm from, and I talk about the Pleiadians throughout, we're really here to seed a consciousness of light. And there was last thing I'll say, a time where the dark was winning. Yeah. And I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like the light is winning and the dark knows it, which is why the dark's fucking freaking out. And we feel it in such this intensity, but it's only because the light is returning. And I think everyone who follows you, listens to the show, hopefully reads my book, is here for a reason. They're being called to that light again. They are finding that light identity within themselves again, whether they would articulate it that way or not. I think that's what's happening. And I'm so excited to be alive right now.
I love that. I feel like we need to close this part on this, because that just felt like such a message of hope. And I think it's exactly what people need right now. And I know you mentioned the book, but like, I don't give shit book recommendations. Genuinely, you need to go read this book. Like, if you're listening, it's absolutely incredible. There's just so much wisdom in it. There's so many aha moments, but I think what's incredible about this book, babe, is like, there's a lot of spiritual books that don't feel, necessarily very approachable in terms of, I think they can make you feel like shit, is how I'm going to say it.
100%.
Because it's like, oh God, you know, I should be doing this and I should be feeling like this and I'm not there yet and da-da-da-da. And what I love about this is like, you really ground it in like a very human experience and in your own stories and in your own truth. And it's very raw, it's very vulnerable. But I think in doing that, it's so much more healing, because you can really see it. You can see the process you've been through, but as is always the way, you can see yourself mirrored in that as well. And yeah, it's just incredible. Really, really beautiful. So yeah, guys, if you're listening, you need the book. You have to go buy it. You have to go read it. Are you going to do an Audible as well?
I did, yeah. I just recorded it last week.
Oh, is it your voice?
Yeah.
I'm so obsessed when someone does an Audible in their own voice. Yeah. Like, I think it just makes such a difference. Totally does. And you have such a nice voice.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
So yeah, go buy, go listen, go read. Yeah.
You're making me tear up. Thank you for that reflection. It was, like I said, a book that came through me, and the fact that it's basically here feels very surreal and a little nerve-wracking too. Like, I'm excited, but it's also, someone said to me recently, like, you are naked in this book. And I really got the memo from Spirit a couple weeks ago. I was meditating because I had all this anxiety about it. And the Spirit said, Jessica, it's not even about you. like, you have to get out of the way now. Like, and you used the word mirror. And I said that at the back of the book. I just said, I hope that these stories were mirrors for you to see yourself in. And so thank you for that reflection about how grounded it is. 'Cause I wanted it to feel, I just wanted whoever reads it to not feel alone.
I love this. I love you.
I love you.
Thank
You're
for this
such a bright
conversation.
light. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
I hope you love this episode as much as I did. Make sure to share a little screenshot of you listening. Tag us both in on Instagram. We want to hear your biggest takeaways, the bits that had you laughing, whatever it may be for you. We want to hear from you guys because I really want you to be part of this conversation. If you haven't already, make sure to pre-order the book. There's some juicy bonuses on there. All the links are in the show notes. And I'm sending you so much love, so much joy, so much abundance. We will see you on the wind down.